Welcome back to the Jumpify Labs Podcast, the show for founders who want growth without the guesswork. Here we talk about the system driving predictable growth, and today's guest has been quietly ahead of a trend that most founders are just waking up to. While everyone debates full-time hires versus automation, he's been building leverage through fractional support long before it was even a thing. Ethan Bull, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
The pleasure's all mine. All right, so Ethan, you spent decades as a career executive assistant before you found your company. What did you learn from being inside these executive rooms that most founders will never see?
Well, I hope most founders end up seeing it or the feel of it. My career is so varied that I worked in entertainment, supporting the chairman of USA Films. I worked in advertising, supporting the chief operating officer of a $1 billion ad agency. And I also supported the CEO of a $2 billion healthcare network. They all run different. All C-suite executives have their own ideas and their own preferences. And so I don't know if I can put my finger on one thing specifically that kind of holds it all together.
And yeah, those are quite different industries.
Yeah.
Are there any patterns that show up across all of them though? Like something that maybe you see, oh, you ran into this before, something that happens like that where you're thinking, oh, okay, I know exactly how to solve that?
A lot of times, business leaders are or may have tendencies around ADHD, and they are usually visionaries, and they need that foundation of operational support to act on their ideas and how to implement where they want to go with the business.
So they're not so much in the trenches doing the work. Their brains are constantly creating new thoughts, new ideas on how to guide the company. I think about Elon Musk. That's why. I'm pretty sure he's not the one doing any coding or putting any formulas together for spaceships. I imagine he's just saying, "Here, we're going here," and he trusts it to the team. Are you seeing something?
Well, no, totally. The key for any business owner, founder, leader is to get themselves out of the day-to-day. And we actually play a big role in that, in terms of being able to take things off of their plate that need to get done, don't necessarily need to be done by them, and there's no one else in the organization at the moment to handle it. So that usually does fall down to the executive assistant, who is, in the best sense of the word, the right hand to the business leader.
Yeah, and what are some of the misconceptions that founders have about what a true executive assistant actually does?
Well, it can be a mystery when your executive assistant starts thinking 3 steps ahead of you, surfacing things or asking questions from a direction that you had not thought of at all. And it can appear as magic, and it can appear as something that just happens like a light switch. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is, if it is a strong relationship between the principal, the founder, the business leader, and the executive assistant, the context that principal is feeding the assistant, even about things that they're not involved in, creates this foundation of knowledge in the assistant that allows them to run 3 steps ahead, look around the corners, surface questions that haven't come up, make suggestions on how to streamline processes or get the principal what they need when they need it. And it's not magic, even though it can sometimes appear as magic.
Yeah, I'm sure once my assistant got to the point where she already knows what I'm thinking and what I'm about to do next, and things are, 3 steps ahead, as you put it. That's so well said, because I feel that, and I wonder sometimes how I ever function without one.
The other thing, and I hate to cut you off, but I want to make sure this gets in there, is that as that relationship builds, you have a shorthand with your assistant. In just 8 minutes, your to-do list as a founder can go from 12 things down to 3. And it can be along the lines of, I'll give you an example, like, hey, Jenny, we've got a new business presentation next week. I want you to take the presentation we did in September, swap out the logos, and that has the same push in terms of what the objective is. But if you could do some research on the website and kind of tailor the content to that, then I'll give it a look. So they had already done this once before in a somewhat little different context. They were able to take that information and streamline down that request that probably took them 5 or 10 minutes to go through into 30 seconds or 15 seconds. And then the assistant is off and running. And that shorthand is, again, something that develops with context, with longevity of partnership and knowledge about each other.
Yeah, thanks for adding that example because that really puts a lot of color into the context that you're sharing, which kind of leads me to the next question. Talk a little bit about what the kind of work you guys are doing at ProAssisting.
Yeah, both my wife and I are high-level executive assistants. We were doing this in New York City for 20 years. She supported 2 different hedge fund CEOs, as well as the CEO of J. Crew, Mickey Drexler. As I said, I worked in entertainment and advertising. And at this level, we really view the EA role as being a business partner, a chief of staff, a project manager, an assistant slash scheduler, and a personal assistant. And so when we moved out of the city, when our second son was born, I had a role. He ended up landing a client in 2017 through a friend in our network. And this was a Fortune 100 consultant. She traveled the world. She needed great support. She told Stephanie, look, I don't care where you are. I don't care how long you're working. I just need this done. And are you interested? And she obviously didn't need full time. And Stephanie said, sure. And what we did to launch ProAssisting was we looked at the virtual assistant space in the United States, and it didn't align with that experience we had in New York City and that high level support, neither from an experience level or from a compensation level. And we kept seeing that business model over and over again. And the gap between where that business model sat and a full-time executive assistant is where we decided to launch ProAssisting in 2018 because we just thought it was a fit. Let me put it this way, we would have regretted later in life if we had never taken that risk and that chance. And back then we called it remote executive assistance. But about 2.5, 3 years ago, Fractional started really coming up. And actually that is even a better fit for what we do. So now our term is fractional executive assistants.
Yeah, and I'm interested. Well, I'd like you to share a little bit about your golden ratio of 3-to-1 executive to assistants. Why is that ratio sacred to you?
Well, at the ad agency that I worked, I was in charge. Well, after working with the COO for 8 years, she was like, I hate dealing with the assistant staff. Not that I hate the assistant staff, but the logistics of it and all of that. She says, I want you to take that on. And that's where I took on the role of director of admin services. So I oversaw a team of 12 assistants, and we were supporting about 60 executives. So that was more of a 5-to-1 ratio, which made me and my HR counterpart want to put guardrails on what support that each assistant could provide to each of their principals. Because if the principal 1 was asking to do all this personal work, principal 2 through 5 didn't get that focus, it made it out of whack. So when I was working at Rochester Regional Health, supporting the CEO there, he also brought me in to be director of admin services. And there I oversaw a team of 80 assistants. And that's where that 3-to-1 ratio really worked to smooth out instances where an assistant was only supporting 1 executive, or instances where an assistant was supporting 7. And that 3-to-1 really was the sweet spot. And Stephanie had the same experience at the 2 different hedge funds that she worked at. A great executive assistant can juggle 3 different principals and make them feel as if they're getting full service support, full-time support. And when Stephanie and I launched our business, we launched it to fill ourselves up with clients. So I worked the 3-to-1 model myself for 5 years, 6 years. Stephanie is still supporting some clients. So we proved it ourselves, and it's proven to work exceptionally well. And that's where some of the value comes in compared to some of those virtual assistant agencies that frankly are partnering their assistants with 6, 8, 10, 12, even 12 clients a month, charging $50 an hour for that assistant's time, but yet only paying the assistant $22, $24, maybe $26 an hour. And so the 3-to-1 ratio is one area where we differentiate ourselves.
Right. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense when you get all that context as well, where you saw where anything above can really stretch the quality and also stretch the person, of course. Okay, so you mentioned the cost per hour. So a lot of founders do obsess over that metric, but how did you learn to sell resources instead of time?
Well, there's a number of factors. One, we wanted to create a model where we could be sustainable, but also compensate our pro assistants, our independent contractors who are actually doing the work at a higher level. So more than 75% of the retainers that we collect go directly to the assistant, and that allows us to get career executive assistants who have 5+ years of experience working with business leaders and C-suite executives. And it allows us to hold on to them for a long time. The other thing is that as executive assistants, we know that there is value in what we do beyond just the time we spend. And so there is value in our experience and having done this before and worked in different industries and different kinds of principles. And you can mine that experience to make your own business more efficient and your own office more efficient. We place value on the exclusivity. And that's where the 3-to-1 ratio comes in, meaning you're not sharing your assistant with 6 other people or 8 or 10 other people. And our assistants work in your business Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and after hours and on weekends in atypical situations or if you're traveling. So given that your assistant only supports a maximum of 2 other people, you can call them up randomly at 2:38 p.m. on a Wednesday, and 8 or 9 times out of 10, they're just going to answer the phone. That also promotes fast turnaround time on communication when, ours is an hour or less during business hours, but usually it's a lot unless they are on a status call with another client. And then the last piece, well, there's 2 last pieces. One is that the legacy knowledge, that context we were talking about earlier, that builds up in your assistant has value over time to make them more efficient, make them a better match for you, and do their job actually, at a higher level. And then the last thing is that there is frankly different values of time for an assistant. So an assistant who is sitting on hold for 45 minutes with Delta to get you a plane refund, that 45 minutes is different than an assistant answering a client email at 8:32 p.m. at night and answering their question and solving their issue in about 8 minutes that keeps them happy and keeps them engaged as a customer. That value is worth more than the 45 minutes on hold with Delta. And so, and frankly, finally, we don't charge by the hour because we want our assistants to be compensated consistently month in and month out so they can plan their own financial life and their own personal life. And so we really try and make it a win-win situation. If a prospect is talking to me and they really just want to know hours and what do I get for 1/3 the resources of your assistant, we can have that conversation. But if that's a nagging point for them, I definitely suggest that they go to a more dollar per hour based business model.
Yeah, that's a lot of strong insight there, because through your answers, I see how this could be that type of engagement where you're charging a flat retainer can really add or remove a lot of stress from having to charge hours for the assistance. But I'm also curious now too, are there any behavioral changes that you see once you have clients that are on that retainer versus hourly billing?
Yeah, frankly, we tell our clients just to go. Don't worry about the time. Don't worry, just communicate the needs. And the assistant will manage your priority list and when things need to get done by, and the priority level, because those things change, deadlines change, priority of different tasks, projects, and responsibilities change. And that can be on a daily and even weekly basis. So it's up to the assistant to do that. But it's all about kind of taking the shackles off the founder or the business leader and just saying, look, leverage your assistant however you want. And if you start going over your resource allotment, we're going to come back and let you know. And so it's somewhat freeing. But the other thing that I really stress is that EA work in general is up and down on a daily, weekly, monthly basis because a lot of times you're waiting for stuff to come back to you. So in our business model, I mean, we're partnering clients with executive assistants who would command 100, 120, $150,000 a year for $3,300 a month for a third of them. So it's meeting the needs of the business leader, and frankly, probably 85%, 90% of the business leaders out there do not need that full-time assistant sitting at their desk waiting for the phone to ring or that email to come in.
Yeah, very interesting. I see how
For
the
everyone.
yeah, no, it wouldn't be, but for the right person, I could see how this can alleviate so much stress when there's no you're just going, as you said. That was really well said. Just go. And it's like, okay, I'll just go. Here's what I'm doing, and then see how they can kind of put all these thoughts and all these priorities, just kind of make it folded nice and neat and stack it on the shelves. Right. So, all right. Well, I'm also curious too. AI is changing a lot of things. AI is a topic of discussion on a lot of conversations going around. How do you see AI changing the expectations that are put on assistants today?
Oh, a lot. We can't, the first 6 months after November of 2022, when I think it was ChatGPT 3 came out or 2 came out, I stuck my head in the sand. I didn't want to hear it. And, but then after 6 months, I started seeing how it can be a great force multiplier in addition to technology in general. So, it was like back in 2000 or 1999, 2000, when the BlackBerry came out, mostly finance companies were handing them out to everyone. And they were just being like, like Tic Tacs. Here, take one, take one. And then what happened? People were answering emails, scheduling meetings at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday or 4 o'clock on a Sunday. They weren't being paid more or anything, but the technology sped them up and made it more reactive and just wanting to clear the deck and make sure that they were on point. It's almost like AI is doing that now. What we're seeing, though, is that there is a lot of pressure from boardrooms onto C-suites to decrease their operational expenses. And at a very high level, the way that Silicon Valley has sold artificial intelligence, it's almost like as if they should be able to get rid of their assistant support staff right now because AI is so good. I don't think that's the case. What I think is that fractional executive assisting is giving them a bridge to move away from a full-time executive assistant sitting in their office to leveraging some AI technology, leveraging some other technology along the lines of like Zapier and Make that connects systems that really aren't meant to be connected, and until those companies came along. And those two combinations are making it to where, that middle market business can decrease their operational expenses on their assistant support staff, bring in a few fractional executive assistants targeting where they need that human connection and support. And we're serving as that bridge. And I think, as you see the 1099 independent contractor workforce continue to expand, I see that as the bridge to streamlining that OpEx and getting to that, nirvana world, if you will, where AI is doing all of the work for us. I think that's still a ways down the road. And I've worked with some AI companies, and I'm advising one now about calendaring specifically, which is just the tip of the iceberg. But that context issue that we spoke about is a hard problem to solve, where the AI understands the constantly changing context. A client leaves, a client comes back, a prospect, ghosts. All of those things are going to change the context of where the priorities are for the principal. And we're trying to crack that nut, but it's happening very fast. And assistants need to get on board and really think how that's going to look 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now.
Yeah, it is. It's almost a little scary in the developments in the last week with a new AI tool called Moltbot.
It was Claudebot, but yeah, now it's Moltbot. And
Yeah,
then now it's even changed its name again.
how has it?
Yes, it went from Claudebot to Moltbot to Code something. Oh, it's Clawbot, Klawbot,
Okay.
keeping the lobster logo with them. But yes, I've been doing a lot of reading on that. And I was later today, I'm going to read an article where the headline is clickbaity about how Clawbot is not on the up and up. I don't know if it's true or not, but everything I've read so far about it is crazy. And
Yeah.
that's the founder of the company that I'm advising. He said that's kind of where the industry thinks the world is going, and I do too. It's just a matter of when you have AI agents having their own conversation on a Reddit,
Scary.
access to all this information, and what access are you giving it? It can be scary when you're talking from an assistant perspective about social security numbers, bank account information, confidential agreements, and they're still susceptible to code injection, and that's a real worry. It's funny because I have prospects ask me, how do you keep the information that your assistant has confidential? And when we do things, we cover our bases there. And as a high level EA, we treat that like attorney client privilege, sacrosanct information. And it's almost like, are we really thinking about that from an AI perspective? Because who knows what's happening in the cloud when we're sleeping and these bots are having these conversations 20.
Yeah, no, that's a whole nother topic outside the scope of our conversation here. But I agree. It is. When I read about Molt book, it plagued my mind for the next 3 hours. I was like, you know what? My head is going Skynet. It's doing all these things. We just built a living, breathing arena for possible malware. What a security concern. It is a little bit concerning, but I mean, at the same time, there's not much we can do about it because AI is going to keep moving forward. If it's not us driving it forward, other people will. And it's one of those things. If you can do something about it, you shouldn't worry. If you can't do anything about it, you also shouldn't worry.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning more towards Anthropic CEOs, thoughts and about security and how important it is. And I'm not sitting here saying government should get involved and put guardrails on, but we do need some sort of consortium that is business friendly to the advances, but also cognizant of, frankly, taking down our electric grid, making it so we can't use an ATM, screwing with our water system, whatever it may be. This is hacking. This is potential hacking on steroids that we've never seen.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it just gave me the chills. I was thinking, I let myself go down the rabbit hole. I told myself I'd not go back in it, but I'm starting to get a little glimpse of it again. All right. This has been a really fun conversation, Ethan. I really appreciate you giving me a glimpse into your world, and I think a lot of people will get a ton of value out of this. When someone's in the space right now, if they're thinking, okay, that sounds like something I'd want to be a part of, having someone where they introduce magic into my life, where should they go?
ProAssisting, ProAssisting.com, and they can find me on LinkedIn, Ethan Bull. ETHANBULL. And I post on LinkedIn last year, actually in 2025, I made it a goal to post every day, every business day on LinkedIn. And I did it. Now I'm pulling back a little bit on that to 3 times a week. But a lot of those posts are towards the executive assistant community. But you'll get a feel for how we view support and how we do it, and if that may be a right fit. I really think Fractional, both from an EA perspective to C-suite leaders, really allows medium and smaller sized businesses to punch above their weight without blowing their balance sheet out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
Making one hire instead of covering 3 or 4 bases. So yeah, I'm happy to talk with anyone who's interested in exploring that.
Yeah, definitely. It's the magic is there. It's there for the taking. All right. Well, Ethan, thank you so much for your time and your experience, sharing your knowledge with us and with me personally. I consider this a gift. Thank you so much. And if you're listening to this and you want to reach out to Ethan about EA work, maybe installing some of that magic in your life, be sure to reach out to him, find his resources. He's very generously shared his site and his LinkedIn. And if you like stories like this, be sure to tune in for more. My name is Jay. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks, Jay.